knock down, get up, figure it out. I was, for the longest, not the best player on the ice, but the work ethic was there to get up and to keep trying. I would outwork you. Was it hard luck beats talent when talent doesn't work hard?
Hi, and welcome to Helping People Perform, the podcast that gives you fascinating insights into those people whose chosen vocation is to help others perform at their best. From consultants to teachers, sports coaches to financial advisors, all of my guests share a passion for getting the most out of individuals, teams, and organisations. Enjoy the episode. Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Helping People Perform podcast. Delighted to be joined today by writer, speaker, hockey fan, and life coach at Where the Change Happens Coaching. Welcome to the show, Jeremy Stegall.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Paul.
Oh, great to have you on board, and really looking forward to what promises to be a fantastic conversation. So, could we start, as we always do, by just getting a bit of background as to who you are and what got you to where you are today?
Yeah. So my name again, Jeremy Stegall with Where the Change Happens Coaching. A little bit about me and how I got to today. It all really started in 2016 when I lost my mother to cancer, and hearing of the response at her funeral celebration of the impact she had in the workplace as a nurse, and just hearing from the people that she had been working with for all these years. I'd been hearing stories about them, hearing of the impact that she had with them. It really touched my heart that there was never going to be enough time with my mother. With this life experience, we're fortunate with any day that we have, but I recognized that in that moment, she had such an impact that was so profound for people and moving. I felt like I was missing that in my own workplace. And it inspired me to take action now and start doing something immediately to shift my experience to be more aligned with what my ideal vision was. So as at that time, I was also about a year or so removed from being divorced and was noticing repeating patterns in my own relationship behavior. So I figured I could start over here. I can move somewhere else. All my friends had kids, so I figured, go for promotion, stretch my comfort zone, see what I'm made of out of a new area. And I moved to South Florida via promotion, and just wanted to figure out what was I made of in sales. And one of my first few weeks I was down in Florida, I was called on a very busy day to come and resolve an issue for a customer. And I essentially dropped what I was doing to get over there to help out and support their issue. And for some reason, I got yelled at for how I went about helping and asking for help to support their issue. And I was at this point where I was starting to listen to podcasts and read books from podcast hosts that they'd written. And I'm like, I'm getting this advice I'm trying to implement down here. And I was just starting to journal a little bit more. And I'm like, why not start a blog and write about what it is that I'm doing and the results that I'm getting? Because there's got to be another way. If I'm going to move to stretch my comfort zone, I'm still getting yelled at. I got to change something. So I figured, why not start with the constant? That's myself. And so I started Where the Change Happens blog and just started writing about the results I was producing and different experiments I was coming up for myself to stretch my comfort zone, even shifting my experience to something I more resonated with, because I wasn't exactly enjoying the experience in Florida. But I'm like, how can I make it so good that I don't want to leave?
Right.
So for 2 years, I focused on that, and it just started shifting my mindset and context around the environment that I was in and the opportunities I was presented with. And realizing, okay, so I don't like where I'm at, but I'm committed to a process here. Where do I want to be? So I researched different landscapes around the U.S., what they had that I liked and didn't like, and ended up coming across Seattle, which is not that far from where I played in Banff about 20 years ago at this point now. But I love Canada, I love mountains and whatnot. And I just realized when I was in Florida, the heat is nice, but not all the time. Right. And I like a couple of different seasons. Yeah. But it was very flat, and it just didn't have everything I was looking for. But Seattle really checked all the boxes, except they were missing a hockey team, a professional hockey team. But once they announced we're getting a team in the NHL, I'm like, Seattle's the spot. There's mountains, waters right there, getting an NHL team. So I was able to be fortunate to hit my numbers in Florida and receive another promotion and move to Seattle and really find a community where I could start to ingrain myself and find a place where I felt I belonged. And I self-published my first book, Where the Change Happens, when I moved to Seattle, but started on my second book about a year or two after, really wanting to get into I started to enjoy the process of writing and becoming a writer. And, through that process of continuing to write and show up for Where the Change Happens, the blog, I met my writing coach worked on my second book and was introduced to a coaching program because she knew I wanted to have a coaching aspect to the book.
Right.
And that really was the catalyst that really tipped everything forward for me, where I enrolled in a coaches training program. I completed my second book that I self-published in November after the divorce, From Looking Back to Leaning In. And I left the retail sales job that I had to go full in on life coaching and becoming speaker and coach to connect with the community and really lean into supporting this transformation that's been so much to me.
Oh wow, a lot there about. I'm getting a lot about taking ownership and and just standing back and saying, what can I do? How can I grab this and make the best of it? Has that always been something in your life? Has that come from any part of
Yeah.
your earlier life?
Yeah, my experience with playing hockey growing up, I started extremely late. Most people start ice skating at 4 or 5 years old. I started at 13, 14. So I was a decade behind, but I loved the game. I just wanted I kept getting up and just getting back into it. I get knocked down, get up, figure it out. I was, for the longest, not the best player on the ice, but the work ethic was there to get up and to keep trying. I would outwork you. Was it hard luck beats talent when talent doesn't work hard or something like that?
Sounds good. And in terms of the book, then, one, tell us a little bit what it's about and a bit deeper on that front. But two, what was the process like from a self-publishing perspective? Because I'm sure a lot of our listeners are keen to potentially write a book or self-publish a book one day. Any advice and tips on there? So let's start with
Yeah.
what it's all about first.
Yeah. I had a lightning bolt one night that hit me that said, I want to write a book, but I had no idea where to begin or how to start. So
Right.
for me, it was like going to personal development events and asking people who had written books, can you tell me something that you have done that would help me, like with writing my own book or in my own journey? Like, what's one thing that you didn't know? And so it was just, continue to lean into the craft, spend time showing up, dedicated writing every day. So, journaling became part of my morning routine and a constant, to this day, every day I write something. And the first book, Where the Change Happens, I call it a personal development, the traditional type of a book where these are the exercises that I did and the results that I was able to produce,
Right.
and some things that you can try in your own life to see how it works for you, or maybe you can iterate off of that and come up with a format that, that suits your needs of transformation and creating change and purpose and whatnot.
Hmm.
And so really that process, it was, leading into like, who edits the book, how do you get on to Amazon? And
Yeah.
again, going to personal development events, I went to one called the Best You Ever Blueprint that had a speaker on stage who's had a book called Published. And it was all about the self-publishing process.
Right.
And it was every step of what to do on Amazon, how to get your information uploaded, where to go to hire people to edit your book, to support marketing it on like Fiverr.com or, Readsy, different, resources that are out there, Upwork, Guru. There's so many places that I could find support. But at the end of the day, it came down to me sitting down and organizing what did I want to say, and then organizing it in a manner that it was a consistent theme, and then recognizing the chapters. Again, getting support. I spoke with so many people over probably a year and a half of figuring out the first book. And I just wanted to see what can I create on my own based on the information that I've gotten, which is Where the Change Happens is.
Right.
The second book, After the Divorce, From Looking Back to Leaning In, is a fiction parable. So it's an immersive story of an individual going through a challenging situation at work and experiencing divorce, trying to create momentum moving forward. It's like, I don't know what to do. I'm trying, and ends up meeting a life coach. And it's that journey of working with a life coach to create transformation in your life where you see it's meaningful. And, that process, working with a writing coach was helpful for writing dialogue to make sure that I was staying on point, that I wasn't going too deep into the weeds. I mean, even when I found the end of the book, I was thinking I was going to be writing another 2 chapters or so. And they're like, no, this is it. This is where you put the period.
Right.
So just having that support, was really helpful. Just having that accountability of having chapters due and just breaking down everything into the smaller steps so that it's coming up with the conversation. Well, what do I want to talk about? How does the conversation go? And then just kind of, building off of that and being willing to take the time that it needs
Right.
to develop organically, but ask for support as I needed. And now it's a thing that I'm able to do with self-publishing on Amazon, with getting book covers designed and reaching out to my network regarding like cover designs and getting feedback on chapters and whatnot, and
Right.
just really asking the community around me for support as well. Like, this is what I've been working on. Like, where
Yeah.
do you think this lands? And
Right.
taking that feedback and then, deciding where I want to go from there. And
Oh.
here we are.
Wonderful. I think it's amazing how not only have you gone and done it and released not just one but two books, but that two different styles of books as well, because that can be quite a change of mindset and a change of approach, can't it?
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't want it to be like about just me and what I did.
Mm.
And I also didn't want to, also part of it was, fear of, getting sued for, quoting or citing a source or something like that. So that did play into part of the differences in the books. But, it's just, I wanted to connect with more people than just those who are already reading personal development books and looking for that content. I wanted to connect with an audience of people who don't know what life coaching is, but would engage if they knew what it was.
Right.
And to tap into an audience of people who are willing to read and process that information for themselves and take and implement for themselves, from their own creative aspects. So just trying to connect with as many people and meet people where they are with how they communicate.
Oh, wonderful. And one of the things that I'm trying to do with this podcast as well is to get out that message to people in terms of the different types of help that are out there and the different roles, the different roles and vocations that people can go out and do for themselves. But also they might be inspired to do that to get some inspiration from a life coach approach into some consultancy or facilitation. They might want to switch that round. Or they might go, do you know what, I'm a people leader, I'm doing an executive in business. I hadn't really thought about this life coaching thing, but now I've heard more about what it actually is and what it means. That's the kind of message I'm trying to get out, so I can get people connected to that help.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, which maybe brings us nicely into this piece about where the change happens coaching. Who do you help and how do you help them?
Yeah, so those that I help, they're individuals, groups, organizations, but really what resonated with me after the first book, what came out was, we started hearing about the Great Resignation, the COVID isolation, because my first book came out just like a month or two before COVID-19 became a thing. And I don't know if you remember, but the first case of COVID in the United States was just outside of Seattle. So it was a very interesting place to be at all of that. So seeing how people were, shutting down and how things started to just become a little bit more disconnected. I wanted to be part of that conversation to bring people together. There's a lot of, issues that my country is going through, and, especially around racial tension and whatnot. And it's like, how can I contribute to a conversation without standing in the middle of the issue and ending up in a bad situation, since I'm here by myself. So, so getting into group or single or coaching one-on-one, talking about compassion and empathy, or, previous experience, how we react from what we know, what we've done before, those who would deal with mind chatter, self-doubt, I've been in those cycles of overwhelm, and seeking support on that journey has been transformational for me. So those are people that I resonate with. Also, those whose winning strategy has gotten them so far, but now is becoming a barrier to progress and to expanding into the next version of who they can be in possibility in the world here.
Yeah.
So really how I help is, through the coaching process of challenging, your thinking process of what is possible, discussing more about the commitment and purpose behind what it is that we're having coaching sessions around, and even having co-creating practice areas and creating a project design, so that we're coming up with actionable steps that we can weekly discuss on how that is impacting your progress around what you want to create or what brings you to coaching. Or if you have a bigger vision, having a project design that's a focus of, let's start with the end in mind and work backwards, but then be supported on that journey of creating, getting the reps and not quitting before it gets easy, essentially, and creating that powerful future from a place where, you have the tools to live a life by your design, and that you're not the same person that you were when you started the coaching program, that you've gone through this transformation process, this reinvention that is like really opened your eyes to who you are, who you can be, and who you have the potential to step into if you're willing to.
Yeah, I mean, I've worked with coaches myself. I do coach people, and the number of people I've
Mhm.
spoken to either through this podcast or elsewhere who are involved in coaching, it's such a wonderful thing to all you're doing. You're extracting the best out of people, and you're
Mhm.
helping them to realize just how good they can be, and helping them along that process of understanding. Firstly, be the clarity as to what they want to achieve, and then what options do they have in front of them in terms of how they get there. But ultimately, it's that accountability piece and action that's the real driver of change, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. To stand for someone who doesn't quite see the vision or believe it's possible yet, but to stand and hold that space for someone and say, I know you can, but as long as it takes, whatever we need to do, however our communication works, again, you're not alone on that journey of creating and stepping into that thing that's the unknown. You've got that structure of support and accountability.
Oh, lovely. And who do you typically work with? Do you work with one-on-one with individuals? Do you work with teams, organizations?
So far, I've been working with one-on-one coaching sessions, but my vision is to expand into group coaching and lean into something, a group coaching program I'm starting specifically men after the divorce,
Oh,
and starting like a accountability and coaching structure for men who are experiencing divorce, where you have that safe space to take accountability, say what needs to be said, but be supported on that journey moving forward versus, you're a man, be strong, boys don't cry and chin up and all that stuff, step up your lip. Like if you need to express whatever, creating that space to for men to be who they are in all aspects
right.
and not feel like I got to hole up. So, starting with one-on-one, it's really amazing to see people when that light bulb comes on and all of a sudden that momentum starts to shift forward. And I really want to expand into helping more parts of the community, especially men.
Right. Yeah, it's a conversation I'll often have either behind the scenes with people or on the pod itself. But that element, particularly when you're going out on your own, of finding your niche,
Hmm.
is it feels a bit counterintuitive because I'm sure like me you want to go out and you want to help everyone. You're
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
everyone can learn from this, everyone can be better, but actually by focusing in on a niche and generally one that's very personal to you and you've got a deep connection with, you can really help more people because they can know that you're someone that they can work with, and it gets over one of those barriers, doesn't it?
Yeah. Because like experiencing divorce and then repeating patterns of behavior around finance, my relationship and to certain contexts, I don't know what I don't know.
Right.
And I didn't realize that I didn't have a values conversation with my ex-wife until we're sitting in the house and I'm thinking, men do certain chores, women do certain chores. And we just came together and it was just like butting heads. It was like, wait a minute, we didn't talk about any of this. Well, what do you want to create? Well, we didn't talk about any of that. It was just the fall in line, happy wife, happy life, get a house on the hill with a picket fence and get a dog. And,
Mm.
you know, sure, I kept the dog, but I was like, I want to be in a relationship and I want to shift what I'm bringing into the room. So being dedicated and committed to this journey of what is a blind spot or a weakness perceived for me and changing my context around that and empowering myself and my choices of how I want to be and who I want to be with. It's it's changed the trajectory of my life. I mean, I feel like I'm living the dream and my bucket list is getting shorter. And I want to bring that energy and that positivity and that opportunity to other individuals who might not see it the same.
Right. And I know before we move on to the next section, I know from previous conversations with you, you as well as helping through that coaching, you're also big on the community help as well, and particularly with your beloved, is it the Krakens? I can't
Yeah, yeah,
remember.
the
Yeah,
Kraken, yeah,
yeah,
Seattle Kraken,
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm very fortunate and grateful to have an opportunity to work at Climate Pledge Arena part time and be part of the guest services team and be a supervisor working with people who are the front facing individuals with guests coming in or with any issues that come up, being able to hold the space and have coaching sessions with people who might be overwhelmed with what's coming at you or triggered and or people coming and projecting whatever issues and being able to hold the space for them because I don't know where they're coming from.
Mm,
But for me, it's about supporting the experience of the guests and the employees and being part of creating culture in the arena. I love going to hockey games. I love going to concerts. And if I had all the free time and all the money, I would be at Climate Pledge Arena anyway.
Right.
So it's like, why not lean into that thing that lights me up and support that? And I don't work for the Kraken, but I'm around all things, Seattle Kraken. I also have partial season tickets, which was one of my dreams moving up here to be part of. So
Yeah.
it's just amazing to be connected to the community, coming for different events, for different genres of music, different types of festivities that they have at Climate Pledge. The values that they espouse, wanting to take climate change seriously,
Right.
they live the values that they speak about over there, and to be connected to that and be part of that,
Hmm.
it fills my heart with joy and energy and passion. I just absolutely love it.
Oh, part of the reason I mentioned that is because this came across in the conversation we had previously. Is that whole bit of the leaning in element of find the thing that you're really passionate about and how can you connect with that?
Yes.
How can you add on to what you're doing, and instead of doing this or that, is how can I do this and that?
And that, yes.
Yeah, and really, I mean, just see the energy that it brings to you as we speak as well. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
thanks. I had the either or context that was pretty loud, especially when I was in the coaching program, and they were very supportive to point that out when I would come up to choice and like either this or that. Like, why is it either or? Why can't it be both and?
yeah,
It's like, hmm.
yeah.
Oh, so now I'm looking for more opportunities to have both and
Right.
versus making it so like yeah, one or the other.
Yeah, lovely. And so I think we've touched on one or two of these bits in terms of your writing coach. But who do you go to help you perform?
Yeah. So, first off, my dad is, my mentor and someone that I really look up to. And so whenever I have anything that comes up, he's always been a great person to speak with about what I'm dealing with, what's going on. My brother down in LA, Jermaine, I talk to him, often as well when I need support because he's also an entrepreneur and he's been through, this journey of building a business from the ground up and having a family. Like he's very rooted in sound principles, and I love being able to connect with my brother, not have like an issue or a sibling rivalry, none of that. Like
Right.
he's my support structure, but also my best friends, back out in Iowa, or I mean, I got friends that are in Canada and Florida, they're everywhere now. So, reaching out to my network and my community, um, if I want to get less, just get more of that perspective of in the world what my friends are doing, or if I want to go professional, then I've got all the people who are the cohorts of my training program that I can speak to about coaching, or the coach that I worked with as well too. I can always reach out to her and have a conversation and get some sessions booked where we can start to create a new path forward. But most recently, I met a hypnotherapist who introduced me to some new practices, which have been very supportive. That if I'm feeling jazzed or whatever, to help me find that center lane and connect with myself and be able to move forward. So, yeah, having like a panel of people that I know I can trust their advice, that what they say, I'm acting on that it's cutting straight to the core. I feel like that's something that's very valuable. And actually, I mentioned it in the first book where the change happens. And it's funny that I'm still doing it. It's like, yeah, no, I believe it.
Yeah, I think it's so important, particularly as a lot of us in the field are the sort of solopreneur. You're out on your own. You're doing your thing, and it's very easy to get caught up, particularly when your chosen vocation, your chosen purpose in life is to help others, to try to give and give and give, and you've got to stand back and you've got to help yourself and you've got to sharpen your saw and get your own
Oh, yeah.
skill set up as well, haven't you?
Yeah, yeah, and having a well-being practice to take care of ourselves.
Yeah.
I just happened to come across podcasts that had talked about putting certain things together, so I came up with a list of my own. But then when I was in the coaching training program, it was one of their specific exercises, and I'm like, okay, this is good that I already tapped into that.
Yeah.
But having any practice, whether it's going for a walk in nature, playing a guitar, there's so many different things. There's a list, meditation and hypnotherapy, whatever, that mindfulness work, having that practice that something comes up, like I can tap into, I have a practice for that.
Right.
And then
Yeah.
whatever the process needs to cycle out, but you're back at it.
Yeah. Ah, lovely.
Yeah.
And quick question then about who would you most like to help if you had the opportunity to, with the skill set and the experience that you've got?
Yeah. And thinking about this one really touched my heart. And What came to me was retiring athletes or athletes that are up and coming that have a long shot opportunity. Like for me, starting to play hockey at a late age, having the opportunity to play junior hockey in Banff, Alberta. I was 18. I just graduated high school. My window to get drafted to the NHL had closed by that point. But my perseverance had gotten me so far, and to see how much further I had opportunity to achieve, you know, experience or supporting the journey that was my journey with professional hockey and having season tickets. I want to support these players, these individuals, these athletes anywhere who are committing themselves and dedicating themselves to developing their skills and ability at a craft. They're focused at it and they're able to rise to a certain level, but then all of a sudden you get to a point where there's a barrier where, what do I do when I retire? What's my identity? What do I do? I have no idea where to go, or I'm never going to make it to the next level. This guy's better than me. Like I'm too short. I'm not big enough, whatever. Like there is something there in that spot, that little gap, that if I could coach anywhere and support that journey of transformation, that's the new dream. I just realized that thanks to you asking me that question. So I really appreciate it.
There you go. A coaching question that's leading to a change in life. That's what we're all about.
Yes, thank you.
And if we flip that question on its head a little bit in terms of who would you like to sit down with, have a cup of coffee, have a drink, have a meal, so that you could learn from them, who would that be for you?
For me, that would be Tony Robbins, without a doubt. The way that he speaks, like I actually saw him when I was in Florida, and he was part of the beginning of this journey of transformation that's gotten me to here. But to see his energy, the strength that he embodies when he's in the crowd, when he's speaking, but also the compassion that he lends, when he's in story and dealing with a vulnerable, sensitive area. I really appreciate his ability to meet people in these different ranges, but I'm telling you, when he speaks with his power, it gets the hair standing on my arms and my heartbeat starts speeding. And I'm like, you're right. Yes. Yeah. I mean, to watch this man on stage for 5 hours and like what he's got, I want some of. And if I'm getting hit with a splash of that, that's rocket fuel. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, funnily enough, I did another recording last night. I don't know which order these things are going to go out in, but Tony Robbins was the answer from someone else as well. And I think he's such a powerhouse, as you say, in the field of self-help and just, he's got so many people, so well known that he's got so many people to think about this as a career and think about how they can make, even if it's not a career for them, how they can make changes in their own life to improve. Yeah.
Yeah, and his origin story, like he didn't come from a great upbringing. He had challenges and struggle. I mean, hearing of like getting poured in his mouth and all the stuff that happened to him and how he overcame and persevered and committed to his transformation, and to see how he's become, it's inspiring just to listen to the story. So to sit down and have a cup of coffee with him. I'm putting that on the bucket list as well too. Manifest.
Well, if you're listening, Tony, you know who to call. So there you go.
Please do. Wherethechangehappens.com.
Which brings us nicely into this final piece. How do people find out more? Where do people go to find out about Where the Change Happens coaching and your books and everything else?
Yeah. So as I just mentioned, wherethechangehappens.com is my website for where the blog is hosted and all the other resources for podcast interviews I've been on, the books and everything. You can go to the wherethechangehappens.com/coaching to find out more about the coaching opportunities, the one-on-one and group coaching, men after the divorce, hiring for public speaking and working with organizations directly. You can also find me on LinkedIn. My name again, Jeremy Stegall, Jeremy Stegall. Why not?
Yeah.
Sing that one out. and then I'm on Instagram as well to join in July, and that's at Where the Change Happens Coaching on Instagram. But both of my books are available both on Amazon and Google Play. So again, the first book, Where the Change Happens, this is the personal development book of exercises that you can try. But after the divorce, from looking back to leaning in, is the fiction parable that I just published in November of last year. Right. And that I feel like a very supportive story that would resonate with a lot of people. And
Superb. We'll make sure all of those links to the websites, to the socials, and links to the books as well, so that people can reach out and sample those for themselves and see what they learn, see where it takes them.
Thank you, Paul. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks so much for coming on today, Jeremy, and best of luck with the new books, and I'm sure the ones that are still to come.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Paul. It's been a pleasure to be here with you.
Cheers. Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you liked what you heard, then please give the podcast a rate, review, and share. I'm Paul Teasdale, and from sausage making to banking, oil and gas to Formula One, I help people perform. If you'd like to find out more and have a conversation, contact me via helpingpeopleperform.com.